In this lesson, we're going to be looking at question 4 of May-June 2024 past exam paper. This is to help candidates to prepare themselves for May-June 2024 economics paper 1 examination, which you will be writing in the weeks coming. 4.1, we need to answer the following question. Name any two financial incentives used by South African government to improve industrial development. So what does the African government does to improve the industrial development? They'll do that by small business support program, SEDA technology program, which is STP, skill support program, which is SSP, critical infrastructure program, which is SIP, custom free incentive, foreign investment incentive, strategic investment program, which is SIP, savers to business processes. So let us look at least one of what I have already mentioned. When you talk about custom free incentive, it means that when the producers or the manufacturers in South Africa, or even the suppliers in South Africa, they are buying from outside the countries, government might put them in the position where they say you do not have to pay any custom by buying outside the country. And number two, when you're looking at foreign investment incentive, it where the locals or where the South African, they can invest outside South Africa without having to pay higher interest rate. 4.1.2, why does the government strive to keep public debt to at least 60% of the gross domestic product? What is that thing that encourages the government to say, we do not want our debt to be more than 60% of our gross domestic products? So there are a number of reasons that the government will ensure that their debt is below 60%. The reason is to reduce the burden on the taxpayer as the repayment on interest and loan comes from tax revenue. So limit public debt will mean that more money will be allocated to other functional needs of the government. So what does that mean? We know that if South Africa has debt in the country, it means they will use the money that is collected by SARS in order to pay those debt or to pay those foreign nationals who have borrowed South Africa the money. So by having debts that are higher than 60%, it means that there is more money that will be required from SARS to pay for those debts. And also by limiting the public debt, it means that there will be more money that is available for other functions of government, which are basically your education, investment, or even other investment that are viable for the country. 4.2, study the table below and answer the question that follows. If you're looking at the table below, it is a table of USD's annual historical exchange rate. And if we're looking on the first part, we have year, which is from 2018 to 2022. And if you're looking at the second part, it's average exchange rate. In 2018, we needed 13 Rand 26 cent to buy 1 USD. And when we moved down, we needed 14 Rand 49 cent to buy 1 USD. And then in 2020, we needed 16.46 to buy 1 USD. And then we saw an appreciation of Rand in 2021 where we needed 14 Rand 80 to buy 1 USD. And then there was a depreciation again in 2020 where we needed 16 Rand 38 to buy in order for us to buy 1 USD. Now let's look at the question that follows. 4.2.1, identify in the table below the year in which the value of Rand was the strongest. So obviously the value of Rand is the strongest when it is the lowest. That means we need fewer Rands in order to buy 1 USD. So when was that period? It is in 2018. And the reason we're saying it is in 2018 is because in 2018, that was the lowest amount of rands we required in order to buy 1 USD. Then it was followed by 2019. Then when we moved down to 2021. So this was the lowest. Therefore, 2018 is the correct answer. Name the exchange rate system used in South Africa. So we just needed to name and get 1 mark. So the exchange rate used in South Africa is called free floating exchange rate system. You would have had during the lesson in the class. If you want more about this, I will do a separate lesson where I explain what is an exchange rate system. And then 4.2.3, briefly describe the term depreciation in the relation to the exchange rate. So what is depreciation and what does it mean? Depreciation, it means it is the point where we need more of the rands in order to buy the foreign currency. For example, if we're looking at 2018 to 2019, the rands that we require in order to buy one USD increased from 13.26 to 14.49. So that means the rand during this period, it did depreciate. So what does it mean? Then we need to briefly describe. To describe, we are going to get 2 marks because we are not listing or we are not naming or we are not identifying, but we need to describe or explain what it means when we're saying the rand has depreciated against the USD. So a decrease in the value of currency in terms of another currency due to the changes in the forces of demand and supply, it is called a depreciation. 4.2.4 How can the government directly intervene in the foreign exchange market when the local currency is undervalued? So, what can the government do in the cases where we find that our rand is undervalued, or basically our rent, it is showing that it is 16.38, but we believe it should be 15 rand or even lower. So in that case, we believe that the rand is undervalued against USD. So what will SA government do in order to intervene this issue of undervalued rand? So they will have to sell more of the USD. By selling more of the USD, there will be more supply of USD, and as soon as we have more supply of USD, it means that it is a benefit for the rand because now the foreign currency which we are pairing against, it has more supply in the country. Obviously, as I've already said, the central bank can sell foreign currency in the market to increase the supply, whereby reducing the exchange rate, and then local currency will appreciate. Now, when you're looking at 4.2.5, a draw a correctly labeled graph to show the effects of an increase in the demand for US dollar in South Africa. So we are showing an increase in demand for the US dollar in South Africa. So for this question specifically, I need to take you to the solution so that we can be able to analyze exactly how then the graph should look like. So now we are showing the effect of an increase, right? So we need to correctly label the graph to show the effects of an increase in the demand for US dollar in South Africa. That means you're going to have two D lines or two demand lines and one supply line. We know that on our x-axis, we need to have quantity, and on our y-axis, we need to have the price of the dollars. It's already shown here on the screen. We have the price of dollars on the x-axis, and then when you're looking on the y-axis, and then when you're looking at the x-axis, you have the quantity of dollars. As I've already explained, you need to have two D line because we are showing the effect of an increase in demand. So we have D and D1, which shows obviously the increase in demand. And then the first one, it will intersect here, and then that will be your lines of equilibrium. So the first line of equilibrium, and this is the second line of equilibrium. The first line of equilibrium is showing the initial quantity versus the initial price. And then now that there's an increase in supply, which there is an increase in quantity of dollars, which will lead to the increase in price. So then we need to show the second line of new equilibrium, which represent those two changes, which is the additional change in quantity as well as the additional change in price. So now how you are going to be marked on this? So first, by correctly labeling the axis, which is your x-axis and y-axis, showing the quantity of dollars and the price of dollars, it would have earned you 1 mark each, 1 mark each. And then the second part, by correctly drawing the labeling of the original caps, which is obviously it's this one and this one, you get a mark. And then correctly shifting the demand curve, meaning to say you're shifting the curve from D to D1, you got a mark. Correctly labeling the X's. Now by showing obviously you have your X's Q1 and Q2, and then your P1 and P2, you would have gotten the mark. So now we are done with 4.2.5. Let us see what we have in 4.3. In 4.3, study the information below and answer the question that follows. We are provided a 4 industrial resolution. The focus of industrial development has evolved over the past century. So it has evolved 5 times. So we had first industrial resolution, second, third, and the fourth. And the fourth industrial resolution, it is in our current state. Now let us see what was happening in the first industrial revolution. It happens around 1765, where there was a lot of mechanization. So let us think of what was happening during that time. In order to make a production of any sort of food, for example, other farmers were using things like your hectares and all the kind of machine in order to create the any forms of food that the country needed at that time. So it was during the times where the country was, or the nation was less experienced to say compared to the later days. And then in B, we have mass production. Obviously, that means now there were easier and better ways of doing things compared to 1765. Now there is a mass production. We see the number of factories were created because now factories could be created better as opposed to 90 to the first industrial revolution. And then we moved to your third industrial revolution. There was automated production, meaning to say now the machine that we have can now be controlled by someone who's not even in the location, based on the fact that it can be automated. And then what happens also in the third industrial revolution, we started to have cell phone, we started to have Facebook, YouTube, and a number of things that were automated and made our lives better. And then when we move to new technology, it is now in the fourth industrial revolution. So what is happening in the fourth industrial revolution? What we see now, things are becoming even more easier. You can just ask something on the internet and then AI will respond to you. So now we are in the places of Internet of Things, where internet becomes the major drivers in the economy in terms of providing solutions to the companies as well as our well-being. So what are the questions that we have? 4.3.1, identify the picture using the letter above that represent the fourth industrial revolution. As I've already stated to you, this is the first industrial revolution, this is the second, third, and the current one, which we are currently in today. It is the fourth industrial revolution, where we have new technology and Internet of Things. Therefore, the correct answer to 4.3.1, it will be what we see here, which is basically today, or rather it is D. So your answer will be D, because you can't write today because you are asked to provide a letter, then the answer is D. 4.3.2, name the government department that is responsible for promoting industrial development in South Africa. You needed to know this department. You cannot cram, you should have learned during the lesson in class. Therefore, this one required your understanding of different department that government have. So in this case, in order to respond to this question, it is Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, that is DTIC. So in case you've forgotten the full name, please write DTIC, because you would have gotten the full mark even if you wrote DTIC, if you have forgotten that it says Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Now 4.3.3, briefly describe the term manufacturing. So manufacturing means it's the process of converting raw material or natural resources into semi-finished and finished products. For example, if the sugarcane is converted from being sugarcane to become sugar, that is the process of manufacturing. So what is important to understand as well is that even if the product is not final, it is just semi, it's still regarded as manufacturing. The product does not have to be a final product. Any product, it is considered to be a manufacturing, even if it's not a final product. 4.3.4, explain the influence of skill shortage on industrial development. So what are the issues of having less skilled laborers in different industry, or when the industry are being developed? So having shortage of skills, it's very costly, you need to understand. But now let us explain. Industrial development may slow down as business may fail to recruit highly skilled personnel. If there's a skills shortage, it means that the companies that need, for example, engineers will go to the market and they will not be able to find those skills. Therefore, recruitment will be hard because there will be no skills that they are looking for. Potential investment in different industry may be discouraged by low labor productivity. So what does that mean? It means that there are investors that are interested in investing in chemical industry, or maybe let us say oil industry, by knowing there's a shortage of engineers that specialize in gasoline, then the investors will be discouraged to go ahead and invest in those industry. Number three, it may lead to increased operational cost, as industry may have to spend more on skills development. So now the industry have realized that they are running short of skills. So what they might say, we rather than invest on creating the skills, we're going to have to pay for their educational fees and also for their training. Therefore, it will become expensive, or it will increase operational cost of the industry in order to ensure that they train and capacitate those individuals they want them to assist them. So here you just needed to name only one. So you could have spoke about the high cost of recruitment, the high cost of operation, or also it would discourage potential investment. By naming any of what I've just listed, you would have gotten 2 marks. So just one, then you get marks. You explain 1 point, you get a full 2 mark. Then 4.3.5, how can the National Research and Development Strategy, which is NRDS, help to improve the South African economy? So how can this this National Research and Development Strategy help to improve SA economy? So again, here you needed to have understood when the teacher in class was taking you through the National Research and Development Strategy during the first 2 terms. So now let us unpack in terms of what is expected of you to respond in a question like this. First, you need to remember that you needed to provide 2 response, because you are going to earn 2 marks for the 2 response. So each respond will get you 2 marks. So let us see now how you would have responded. The NRDS involved the research on the new technology which help to increase the productivity. So what does NDS do? They look at what each industry is doing and research to find out whether there will be no better ways of producing that certain product or doing that certain activities. So they will do research and then they'll come up with results to say, by doing this, the productivity in this industry, in this production will improve, right, by applying those research. Research on new production techniques may result in high output, which will stimulate economic growth. So what does that mean? By then, the companies that are producing certain products or delivering certain service, applying those technology or those research that they have researched, that will increase to the increased economic growth, because now more products will be made as opposed to the past. Introducing the new technologies may improve productive efficiency, which may lead to lower prices in the economy. Again, by getting new technology or new and better ways of doing things, that means there will be lower prices in terms of producing the products that are being produced by different industries in South Africa. New ways of business, such as internet sales, may be more convenient and cost effective to consumers and producers. You must remember that before we have shops like your Take a Lot, where you buy online, before traditionally there were no Take a Lot, meaning to say it was very costly for any business to operate because they needed to have shops and employees in different locations. Whereas with Take a Lot, they only need to have the storeroom in certain province and the distribution will happen from that storeroom. So what does that mean for the company? It means there is a reduced number of employees that are required, because only certain warehouse or region will have all the inventory that will be required by the consumers or by you as a seller. Again, there will be also few money spent in terms of the warehouse, or to buy the warehouse, or even manufacture the warehouse. Artificial intelligence may help to solve complex problems in the economy. So now this National Research and Development Strategy, it came up with AI, right? That came from obviously the National Research and Development Strategy, they said that it will be easy for you to do certain things, because if you go to AI and ask AI which one is better between manufacturing alcohol using this process versus manufacturing alcohol using alternative process, AI will come up with the results and say manufacturing alcohol using process A, it's much cheaper on the basis of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then by using that result, you are reducing the cost of producing and the complexity of producing certain products, because now AI would have responded in terms of how better certain product can be made. And then the development of new technologies may create new jobs, such as data analyst. So in the past, when there was no advanced technologies, data analysis was harder, and there was no need to have data analyst, or even data analyst no one even knew about at that point. But now there are new jobs for data analysts, meaning to say when you finish matric, you can then even apply for data analysis. So that is a good thing for you, is that now we're at a point where you can even apply for data analyst. There are new jobs that have been created. Now, again, you just need 2 points. Any of what I've already listed, you will have to state it and get the mark. 4.4, discuss the necessity of the public sector in the economy. Why do we have public sector in the economy? It is important for you that you understand the number of points you will need to write here, and then how you're going to add mark. So if you see here at 4 times 2, that means you needed to list 4 points, and each point will earn you 2 marks. You're going to have to discuss or explain why public sector is important. Now let us look together and understand why public sector is important. The public sector provides community goods such as street lights free of charge, because free riders cannot be excluded in their consumption. So if you see the robot on the street, you must understand that it was provided by the public sector, because they want to ensure that everyone has access to light when driving at night. The state supplies collective goods such as stadiums and parks for user or charge to discourage abuse of public goods by free riders. Then there will be services that are produced or are provided by the public sector, which will be at a fee, mainly to discourage the abuse of those places. And those places are places like your stadium. You'd hear when they say, if you want to use the stadium, you need to pay certain amount of fee. That amount you pay, it's not so big. However, it is put there to ensure that not everyone just enter and leave the stadium, litter the stadium, destroy the stadium without providing certain fee that will be required. The state uses subsidies to encourage the production and consumption of merit goods such as education and healthcare, because they are social benefit. So now what does happen? So you will see that if you go to university, they will say they are NSFAS. And the reason that things like your NSFAS, or if you want to study certain course, you'll be provided subsidy. Or if you want to take certain medication, there's certain medication which are subsidized by government. For example, medicine like your ARVs are subsidized, and then we're looking at the prescription for ensuring that you don't get baby when you are not ready, they're also subsidized. So government plays a bigger role ensuring that certain services which are important for everyone, example education and healthcare, are subsidized. And the reason that they are subsidized is to ensure that the majority of people are able to gain access to those necessities. And we know that it is very important that people are educated, and they also form part of getting the medication when they need it. And then let us look at the last question, which is 4.5. How does South African government use fiscal policy to improve the standard of living? So what does the government do in order to ensure that the standard of living for all, it is at the level that is expected or better than it was in the past? So now let us discuss using tax revenue to pay social grants such as old age grants, child support grants, and disability grants to improve the standard of living for this advantaged group. We all know that not everyone was lucky enough to be born from the wealthy family. Not everyone was lucky enough to work before reaching the retirement age. So government used fiscal policy to say, we're going to collect the revenue money, and this part of money will be used for disabled people, for old people, and unfortunately for kids who are born by the parent who cannot provide for them. So now the money will be allocated to those spending. So tax revenue will be collected and they will use it to provide the grants for people that they believe deserve the grant in order to live at a certain standard of living. Using progressive income tax system, which aim to redistribute income by levying high tax rate on high income earners and low tax rate on low income earners. So what is that? What does it mean? If you have had in the past, they will talk about pay as you earn. So the pay as you earn, the main reason it is sitting there is to ensure that people that are paid more than others are paying more so that their money, their tax money, can be used to improve the standard of living for disadvantaged people, right? So SARS collect money based on what you earn. And the reason for doing that is to distribute the income so that people that are earning so much are not finding themselves being so wealthy compared to other people who are earning less than them. So this policy aims to redistribute the income of earners in South Africa. Number three, providing benefits in kind such as free basic health care and education to ensure that the standard of living for the economical marginalized citizens improve. So now what happens? The other tax money that is collected by government goes to things like your health care. Its way is that it is in the hospitals and clinic, and then when it goes there, it ensures that people who are unemployed or earning a very low amount are able to get good health care in the country. Number four, addresses economic challenges of unemployed by extending unemployment grants of 350 to maintain better standard of living. So also what is done is to increase the 350 or even initially provide the 350. It obviously came from the collected revenue that comes from tax, different tax that is collected by government, and that money is then used to be provided to people who aren't earning any cent. What else? Paying property subsidy to people earning less than 3,500 per month for them to afford housing. You would have had in the past to say certain people are provided subsidy by the Department of Home Development, and that money is then used to ensure that they get to the point where they can be able to buy houses. So, for example, they will say, if you are earning less than 3,500 per month and you want to buy a house worth 350,000, they will subsidize 100,000 and you're only gonna need to pay the bank 250,000. So the aim is to ensure that people who are not earning that much are still able to get housings. Alternatively, you also find out that they are provided the RDPs. You will know that private home, or you've heard people talking about RDP. So sounds correct revenue and user revenue for the purpose of building the houses for people that cannot afford them. And then the other one, it is levying wealth tax to finance social development expenditure that benefit the poor more than the rich. Again, people that are wealthy in South Africa that have certain amount of money, they are billed different kind of tax of wealth tax. It will be the tax that is levied when they sell their properties. It is the levies that they have to pay when they receive dividends from the company they're investing on, and that money is not used for them. However, it is subsequently used for people who are in need of money. Obviously, that money is used for different needs. Could be education, which is your NSFAS. It could be healthy benefits, which could be it used in the clinics. And then the last one, it's implementing redress measures such as triple BE and affirmative action to improve the standard of living for the previously disadvantaged groups. Again, this money that is collected and monitored under fiscal policy, it is used to ensure that the triple BE is applied. Because if it wasn't there, then it will be harder to apply the triple BE. Now let's look at the last one. So there's the last question of question number 4. How does the South African government, okay, it was the last question of question number 4, where we're looking at how does the South African government uses fiscal policy. Thank you so much for listening up until this far. This was our last question, and then enjoy and all the best for your exam.